Okay, our next speaker for this afternoon is the company GreenX Metals. Welcome on stage.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Right. So, my name's Stoikovich. I'm the CEO of GreenX Metals, and I'm here today to tell you about a very exciting new copper-silver project here in Germany. So, the project is located in Hesse, central Germany, and it's called the Rickelsdorf Mining District. We have tenements of around 1,900 square kilometres, and this zone here is an area of historic mining going back to the 1930s and 1940s. So, geologically, what we're looking for is the Kupferschiefer. The Kupferschiefer is one of the world's largest sedimentary hosted copper formations. And in case you don't know, there's a mining company listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange called KGHM. It's in the same formation, just up here. KGHM is the world's 8th largest copper producer and the world's 2nd largest silver producer. Last year they produced 43 million ounces of silver, 730,000 tonnes of copper. So we're in the same formation, just down in central Germany. We also have good company because Anglo American, one of the world's largest mining companies, is also exploring in Germany in 4 different locations for the same commodities. One comment here is that there's a Canadian mining entrepreneur, very famous gentleman by the name of Ross Beatty. He's been privately funding copper exploration in Poland now for over a decade. And they've made a very major discovery here. This area here, the company's called Munich Copper Corp. They've discovered 20 million tonnes of copper metal and over 1.5 billion ounces of silver. But that company's private, which is why you've not heard about it. So that was only discovered in the last decade. So the point is, there's still a lot of scope for new discoveries here in the Kupferschiefer and in Germany. Okay, so where our project is located is a proven production district. 3 mines here were built in the 1930s and they extracted over 400,000 tonnes of copper. So we know there's copper there, and the mines are very shallow. They started from the surface and then just followed the copper seam underground. Then in the 1980s there was some exploration work done, and they made these discoveries. 2 metres at 1.6% copper, 19 grams a tonne silver, and a whole cluster of discoveries down here. So we're quite convinced that the copper exists along a 14-kilometre strike with these discoveries at either end, the old mines in the middle, and a lot of geological potential in between. And I've already mentioned that these projects are shallow, so if you look at where Anglo American are currently exploring in Germany, they're down at around 800 metres depth. If you look at where KGHM, the world's 8th largest copper producer, is mining in Poland, they're down at 1,400 metres depth. What we have in Germany, it starts from surface. That's where the old mines were, in that area there and there. So we start from surface and go down to no more than 500 metres, which is very shallow for sedimentary copper. So what's the exploration upside here? Back in the 1930s, when these deposits were discovered in Germany, the geological understanding was not so well developed, so they would only mine the Kupferschiefer, the copper shale, which was this very thin band of high-grade copper here. It's about 40 centimetres thick. That was what was mined historically. But what we learned in the 1970s and 80s when Poland developed its underground mines. The Polish made a big discovery that only 5% of the copper is actually hosted in the shale. The other 95% is hosted in the dolomite above the shale and the sandstone beneath the shale. So the upside potential for us in Germany now is to replicate what they've found in Poland. Point in case, that is a picture from one of the mines that operated on our license areas in Germany, and you can see they work in that height. That is a modern underground mine in Poland today where they're working up to 8 meters of height. So that makes a significant difference to your mining economics. So that's what we're targeting. So some of the old core from the drilling in the 1980s is still available for us and we have access to it. And what we've figured out is that when it was sampled historically, they often stopped sampling in high-grade copper. So here they stopped sampling and it was still 1% copper. So we've sent this core back to a lab, we're having it reanalyzed, and I'm reasonably confident that we might see that get a little bit deeper there with more copper. So you all know who BHP is, the world's largest mining company. They hold an annual competition called BHP Explore, which is an accelerator program. We won that competition. That was announced in January this year, us and 7 other companies. They've invested $500,000 US into the company, but that's not the important part. The important part is that we have all of BHP's international copper exploration expertise working with us on this project. So this is really a brownfields opportunity because we have so much historical data. First, we have 47 holes that were drilled after the 1970s, and the core from those holes is still available in the Hessen Geological Archive today, and we have full access to it. So it's over 4.5 kilometres of core. It's all stored like that. 18 of those holes, the ones in black and white here, were never assayed for copper or silver, even though they intersected the Kupferschicht, because they were drilled for oil and gas or other reasons. The remaining holes, 29, were actually sampled, but only over a very thin interval of 5 meters. So what we know from Poland is that the copper can exist 30 meters above and 60 meters beneath the shale horizon. But historically in Germany, they only sampled 5 meters. So again, a lot of exploration upside based on the core we have. So a few weeks ago, we made an announcement of a very important discovery, and that was in the 1930s, during the National Socialist times, 95 exploration holes were drilled here, and there's a full extensive database, and we have all of that information. Borehole logs, assays for about half of the holes. So the geology here was very well understood. Based on this exploration program, the National Socialists began developing these 3 copper mines, which were in operation by about 1939, and then when the Americans invaded at the end of the war, these mines were flooded, and that was it. They weren't closed because they ran out of copper, they were closed because it was the end of the war. Here's an example of one of those mines. This is the Reichenberg mine here. The shafts were only completed there in about 1943, so they didn't have much time to mine the copper. These are the detailed plans we have from the government archive. That's where they mined some copper here from one of the shafts. And the amount of geological data we have is really quite incredible. Here in those workings, that's a zoom in, we have over 400 channel samples at 10 centimetre intervals every 50 metres. That tells us exactly how much copper and silver there is and what grades it's at. So it's incredibly advanced. So as well as the archival data search, we're working with BHP and we're also bringing very modern exploration technology to this project, and earlier this year we flew airborne geophysics, which has allowed us to identify the regional and local faults, and we know from Poland that the faults control where the copper and silver is found. And we'll be doing more of this modern exploration work over the next 18 months. So why was this opportunity overlooked? It's a pretty simple story. The Ruppersdorf mines here were right on the border zone between the old East and West Germany. In fact, there was a US military base here, so nothing was built here. But the company that did all the exploration work and built the copper mines was actually headquartered at Mansfield, the famous copper producing district in the GDR times. So those records that we're now uncovering were located in archives in former East Germany. So for the first time in 80 years, we've been able to reunite the project with the original database. All of that data is in paper format. It looks like that. It is very, very detailed, but it needs to be digitized and put into a modern geological system, and we're very busy doing that. So why invest in copper now in the EU? It's because last year the European Union introduced the Critical Raw Materials Act. Copper is the top commodity. It's a strategic commodity. So EU policy is now to support EU domestic production of copper. And German government policy is the same. So KfW here in Germany has been granted 1.4 billion euros as part of a German government sovereign wealth fund to encourage more mining of strategic commodities in Germany, and we have one of those strategic commodities. So we're in a very, very supportive policy environment. I just want to talk about our team for a second. Our chairman, Ian Middlemass, is quite a famous mining entrepreneur out of Perth, Australia, with many, many successes. There's me, CEO. I'm a mining and environmental engineer by profession. I'm also chairman of Sovereign Metals, where Rio Tinto invested $60 million 2 years ago, and they're an 18.5% shareholder. But importantly, we have Dr. Gregor Borg. He's one of the world's leading experts in Kupferschiefer copper. He's German. He's an economic geologist professor at the University of Halle-Wittenberg. He consults exclusively the GreenX metals on this project. So, to summarise, the Tannenberg project, we have a proven management team. We have a supportive policy environment with the EU Critical Raw Material Act and German government policy. We have two strategic commodities, copper of course, but silver is also used in photovoltaic solar cells, but at $48 an ounce is a pretty good investment as well at the moment by itself. We have the brownfield advantage. This is a highly advanced project. By my estimates, we've saved over 25 million euros and over a decade in exploration because of the data we've found in the German archives. The lost data has been reunited. You know, the documents were found in former East Germany, the mines existed in West Germany, and we're the first ones to find that data in 80 years. And finally, we're working with BHP using the latest exploration methods in conjunction with our historical data to advance the projects. And on that note, I'd like to invite any questions. All good, thank you.